Sharon and I started in the MFA program together the same semester, fall 2023. She was in the very first nonfiction graduate workshop that I taught here. And it's been clear to me from the very start, our very first class together, that she is not just a spectacularly talented writer, but the deepest well. She's full of curiosity and insight and care and so much fire. Sharon is a yoga therapist, a dancer, a traveler, a mountain climber. She is a devoted friend. So many of her friends are here tonight, which speaks to what a fierce and loyal friend she is. She is a devoted friend, sister, partner, instructor, and cat parent. Sharon loves her people and creatures fiercely, and I italicize the word fiercely on the page. I've brought with me just a fraction, a very teeny tiny smattering of gifts that Sharon has given me at our monthly meetings, which I realize we've been having for, well, I can say our years now, which is wild. One of the first gifts she gave me was, it was an electric fireplace. Which I plugged in and placed on the coffee table in the living room of my little house in front of my actual fireplace, which Progressive Insurance made me promise never to light in Fresno before they agreed to insure my home. So I couldn't use my actual one. So she gave me one, and I one right in front. For the first 2 years I lived and worked here, I drank myself to sleep every night and fell asleep on the couch with my dogs in front of that crackling electronic fireplace. I used it every night for so long that I broke it, so it's not one of the gifts that I brought here tonight, but I did bring the beautiful shawl that she wrapped the fireplace in lieu of gift wrap, which is just like Sharon herself, a gift within a gift. Every material item gift she's given me is so personalized and specific and carefully chosen. An essential oil called Panic Button, a teeny tiny finger puppet, puppy finger puppet, tiger's eye and carnelian, a miniature crystal ball. But most recently, to celebrate my 1-year sobriety anniversary, Sharon gave me this little black book here in which I can write all of my teeny tiny thoughts and poems. My favorite gift, though, will always be the teeny tiny chair with a carved back and green velvet cushion that she gave me at our first meeting after I agreed to be her thesis chair. A position that is one of my greatest professional honors to date. Working with Sharon has been and continues to be a humbling, joyful, intimate, collaborative, and inspiring experience. She has written a rich and beautiful book, and I feel so privileged to be part of its journey into the world. On the page, Sharon is witty, observant, honest, incisive, and generous. She is an extraordinary rememberer. I especially love Sharon's writing about her beloved sister, Teresa, her forever best friend, and maybe, if I may be so bold, the greatest love of her life. Sharon has to remember Teresa now, and she does it so well with vivid detail and characterization and dialogue. Teresa and all Sharon's siblings, who I know are, she told me, are all watching her original cohort, are bright and real and so alive in the pages of these essays. I could write pages of praise for and appreciation of the woman we're about to hear. I've already said how privileged I am to work with her in this capacity, but I'm also incredibly fortunate to call her a friend and also a mentor in this one precious life that we have. I'll close with a brief list of Sharon's accomplishments and publications. That way I can collect my emotions. So I'm just gonna read. There are so many. She's so accomplished in just this short 2.5 years really that she's been here. So she has done public readings, invited to read at Rogue Festival, 2022 through 24. The Fresno State Creative Writing Contest that we run every year. Each year, she's been a runner-up in CNF, a winner in undergrad CNF and poetry categories, a runner-up in the graduate CNF category in 2025. She's been invited to read at CSU Summer Arts in 22 and 25. She read at Art Hop several years, Rough Drafts, the Fresno State Art Song and Poetry Contests, of which she was a winner in 2023, and a judge and announcer the subsequent year. Her publications are so impressive. Her poem, Weathering, which she shared with me so late into knowing her, is gorgeous. And it won the Larry Levis Memorial Prize, is that right? Yeah. So it's published on the Academy of American Poets, which is wildly impressive. August 2023. You can find that at poets.org. Weathering, again, is the name. Her poem, Unearthing Home, was in Our California, which was a joint project of the California Poet Laureate, your friend and mine, Lee Herrick, and the California Arts Council. So Brute Force was a flash nonfiction piece, and then Trilogie de Fleurs. Sorry, I don't speak French. She speaks great French. Was a photograph, both published in the San Joaquin Review. Santa Monica Sunset, her essay, which she wrote in one of our workshops. Yeah, you got one of our workshops earlier on. It was placed in Under the Sun. And then most recently, which we screamed about via text, Thrust Fault, which we'll be reading from tonight, was accepted for publication by Lit Magazine, LIT Magazine, which is a nationally renowned lit mag out of the New School in New York City. So just wildly impressive. And another essay that I had the privilege to see in workshop and is just, it's gorgeous. So please join me in welcoming up the incomparable Sharon McClain.
Thank you. Now I'm really out of body. Just humbly honored and so grateful to have had the opportunity to do this program. Thank you, Stephen Church, as well, another great professor, and Brenna and Bryn Saito. All of you have really helped me grow as a writer. So, and thanks, Jefferson, for all that you do. All right, so this image, well, that's me and our dog Jardy. This is like sometime in the 70s in Redondo Beach. And I wanted this projected because childhood at this time was really chaotic. Home life and having a home was hard to do. Lots of different places we were living, but always the beach and the ocean were my refuge. So, and my dog. All right, so I'm reading several essays, and the first one is called Home Alone. I can still remember some of the addresses of the places we lived. My older brother Stephen and I would quiz each other to see who had the best recall, spitting out responses like game show contestants. 20th Street and Pico Boulevard, Santa Monica, California. 29744 Baden Place, Malibu, California. 1018 5th Street, Santa Monica, California. It was easiest to remember the earlier places, but after the late 1960s, things became a blur since we kids were often split up and farmed out to live with friends or strangers. Eventually, color was a key identifier of our previous residences. The Yellow House on the Hill, Susanna Avenue. What was the street address? The Black House, the one across the street from Torrance Beach. Or Ed's repartment, as pronounced by our younger brother Forrest. Ed was a business associate of my stepfather Bob, and he said we could stay with him for 2 weeks. But my family of 5 stayed for a year, crammed into one bedroom. By then, Stephen had departed and lived in his boss's garage, while our older sister, Teresa, moved in with a couple that Mom barely knew from her church. I eventually left Ed's apartment, but I can't remember where I went. I do remember that no matter where I lived, the ocean was always close by. We lived mostly in the sleepy beach towns that dotted the LA coastline, from Palos Verdes and Redondo Beach in the south to the northernmost point at Zuma Beach in Malibu. In the 1960s, the Malibu area was largely undeveloped, but Bob found a 3-bedroom place with a roomy guest house on 3.5 acres of sage scrubbed terrain for a monthly rent of $250. A recent check on Zillow shows that a new house was built on that property in 2011 and is now worth $34.5 million. Our Malibu house was set high on a cliff on the east side of Pacific Coast Highway overlooking the ocean. 10-year-old Teresa led us on adventures exploring our property and beyond, bushwhacking through the overgrown hills, thick with the scent of sage and eucalyptus. We even made friends with some of the extras when Planet of the Apes was filmed on the beach below our house. One foggy spring day, Mom announced excitedly that she and Bob were taking a trip to San Francisco for the weekend. Teresa would babysit us, she explained, and she would leave us a few dollars for food. Our parents drove off on a Friday night, and the next morning we walked the 2 miles north on Pacific Coast Highway to Tranca's Country Market, a tiny establishment that carried the basics for the local community. As we set off that still morning, the ocean was a glassy, iridescent blue with shimmers of glinting sunlight. A few surfers bobbed on the swells as they waited for the big one. We could hear the occasional shore breaker pummel the wet sand while the scent of salt and tar wafted our way. "Let's go body surfing when we get back," Stephen blurted out. "We got to get the groceries first, then see what time it is," Teresa snapped, the weight of the caretaker role dragging on her 10-year-old psyche. At 5 years old, I was too young to stay home alone or walk the entire stretch. So Teresa and Stephen took turns pulling me in our red wagon along the unpaved edge of the highway. Cars sped by, whipping up debris on the dirt path, occasionally letting loose a blaring honk. Hauling home our loot of cereal, bread, cheese, and red licorice, Teresa crafted a story to entertain us, with Stephen and I adding characters. That night, as we ate our dinner of cereal and toast at the kitchen counter, a thunderstorm pummeled the grayish-black skies and knocked out the electricity. We huddled, scared, in the kitchen as the storm progressed, eventually taking refuge in the living room. Swaddled in blankets, we watched from the huge picture windows that spanned the coastline, the waves savagely thrashing, devouring the dry sand while we gnawed on our licorice. "You guys, let's sing Christmas carols," Teresa shouted. She began, "Jingle bells, Stephen smells, Sharon laid an egg." Thank you. Okay, so this next essay is called Thrust Fault. The front door frame is supposed to be the strongest in the house, so you squeeze into that rectangle while your siblings spill onto the front porch, vertiginous from tumulted terrain. It's years before the public safety chant of drop, cover, and hold on. 47 miles away, tectonic compression detonates, aggravating a previously unknown fault, forcing mountains 6 feet upward, buckling roads and freeways, disfiguring the landscape. Your stepfather, Bob, roars that this is the big one. Vindication wild in his navy blue eyes, dark pompadour disheveled. Mom stares vacantly, a sycophant, spellbound. Bob's muscled 6-foot, 5-inch frame shudders as he preaches that this quake will decimate the metropolitan LA area. He's been forecasting this disaster for years, And since you've lived near the ocean most of your 12 years, there is the threat of a tidal wave. You've been through this countless times. LA earthquakes and Bob's raging outbursts. They douse your gut acidic. First, an almost imperceptible rumbling, then a subterranean growl that explodes into foreshocks, threats. Dishes and bric-a-brac clattered, then smashed from thermodynamics of earth or man. Now a dissonance of blaring car alarms and jarring church bells accompanies the tympanic thud in your chest and the one in the ground. You know what to do. Jump out of bed, grab a baby, find a safe spot. It seems these tremblers and tantrums always hit in the early morning hours, although there are no supporting statistics. Maybe they stand out because you are most vulnerable when jerked from sleep. Fear searing a tender and unsuspecting brain, an amygdala unprepared. But this quake and your stepfather's mood, I love that. You can keep it like that, are different. This quake and your stepfather's mood are different, more intense. You press your spine against the door jamb as you struggle to balance limbs while the earth shifts. Your 3-year-old brother, Forrest, is in your arms. There's a long, worn piece of black yarn safety pinned to the seat of his pajamas, since he has decided he is a black Labrador retriever, like your dog, Jardy. The rent is almost 4 months past due, and Bob is frantic. But there's the big business deal that's about to hit pay dirt. He waxes quixotic. We'll be rich. He swears we'll be able to pay for all the things. Cafeteria lunches, school photos, movie tickets, new clothes to replace the threadbare and ill-fitting, toilet paper instead of newspaper, past due rent, the phone bill to resume service, toothpaste instead of salt, new shoes for Forrest, the overdue tab at Blaine's health food store, dog food so Jardy doesn't have to eat bread, the thousands borrowed from Grandma Petey Pie for food and lodging over the years, the many unpaid invoice balances at the offices of doctors and dentists in Redondo Beach, extravagant shopping sprees, the mythical powder blue Cadillac convertible he has talked about for years, in which our family of 6 will travel in style to Florida to celebrate Christmas. The purchase of a mansion in Beverly Hills. We could finally put roots down instead of enduring several evictions per year. Upheaval, locally severe damage, total displacement. Not done, but wait, there's more. I wished it was over back then. You always believe his promises, maybe because he believes them too, with a fierceness, a violence, demanding that you maintain eye contact while he rails against the shysters out to get him, while he raves for the lifestyle he so deserves, but is not yet manifested. You're afraid to look away lest his fury accelerate. So you start to count quietly, under your breath, riding the rhythm of those digits until the indigo of his eyes spreads like a bruise across his face. Until you coax your mind back into your body. The tidal wave threat is real, Bob announces, so the answer is to head east, to higher ground, to Nevada, tonight. Without a family car, you will climb into the back of Bob's 2-ton metal box truck with your older brother and sister. You'll sit in flimsy plastic patio chairs on a toxic snowpack. The truck's flooring is covered in inches of slippery white chemicals from Bob's current business venture. A rusted metal curtain is the only barrier between you and the traffic. Bob will drive, Mom and Forrest will ride shotgun. We're not taking Jardy, Bob says, and you dissolve into numbers breathing in 3/4 time, 2 beats in, 1 beat out. Respiration, reeling, clammy, sweat patina, stinging the back of your neck. Aftershocks continue all day, shooting adrenaline through your veins. The TV is flooded with images of buildings collapsed at sickening angles, beams like broken bones, cars crushed under fallen freeways. Occasionally, you run across the street with Jardy to monitor the ocean, but there is no supernatural tidal recession that precedes a tsunami. And why Nevada? You don't know anyone there. You'll miss school, and the truck is freezing at night. Plus, you hate how all the drivers point and stare like you're in a freak show on wheels. Why not a room at the Budget 6 motel, only a few miles away, but at a higher elevation? You wrap your arms around Jardy, pressing your face into his silky black neck, inhaling that familiar scent of musk, cinnamon toast, and earth. Maybe you could sneak him into the motel. Years later, you read there was no tsunami threat because this quake's epicenter occurred inland with no ocean floor displacement. You hope Bob forgets about Nevada, but by 6 p.m., he orders you to pack for the trip. By 8 p.m., the smog-stained moon rises red, interpreted by Bob as the omen to exit California. A familiar dread swells under your sternum, shunts blood to thighs, spreads pupils like ink blots. In the bedroom you share with Forrest, you frantically shove flannel pajamas, red Keds tennis shoes, a handful of underpants into a worn duffel bag. With no knowledge of how long you'll be gone, you guess at what to pack. You cram a Joni Mitchell album into the bag. You stuff your favorite peach lip gloss into the side pocket. You enter the dark living room, Bob's limp body submerged in the couch cushions, hushed talk show voices drifting out of the glowing TV. Mom putters in the kitchen. The truck's leaking oil, Bob's words thick like sludge. His back towards you, he burrows deeper into the couch and drifts off. Thank you. This is a little one-pager called Neighborhood. So much time spent on buses or walking to bus stops. I know the sidewalks intimately, where you can trip on an uplifted edge, or a spot where grasses push up and sprout through cracks, finding sun and air, even daring to bloom. I know the bus stops, the transfer points, the quickest way to get to my high school, which benches are splintered or might have old food or vomit on them, which bus stops are located near taverns with unruly and annoying patrons, where there might be shelter to block the wind or rain. I know the sounds and smells of different neighborhoods, tantalizing aromas drift out of certain houses at particular times of the day. The corner house at Avenue B and Esplanade always has some kind of savory meal prepared around the time the yellow-orange sun slips behind the edge of dark blue ocean. The synthetic floral fragrance of fabric softener wafts out of an apartment vent on Catalina Avenue. A woman's sing-song voice corrals her children to the dinner table. I yearn for a home with these predictable dinners and rituals, a home with a washer and dryer instead of a trip to a laundromat where theft and harassment are the norm. An end to the serial eviction lifestyle we lead, on and off again homeless. I'm always on the lookout for a rental house that we might be able to afford. But eventually I will look for room for rent signs when I realize the futility of relying on my mother and stepfather to provide consistent food and shelter. Thanks. And this last essay is called The Hammer. The paint-specked hammer flailed out of my stepfather Bob's hand like an exotic bird gone berserk, striking the orbital bone under my eye, then plummeting to the scuff-red linoleum floor. My skull stunned, my body reverberating from the hit as I slammed into the wall. Bob's man scream, tinged with the sour stink of beer, wrested me back to reality. God damn that fucking hammer, he bellowed. Wincing at his words, the side of my face throbbed. I never should have let Mom convince me to move back into this tired brown house in the shadow of the 405 freeway. But I ate up those pretty promises. Bob's changed. He swears he'll stop drinking, and he's got the Lord in his heart. We'll be able to buy groceries and get our phone turned back on. We'll buy a house with a washer and dryer. And how would you like to have your own car? A junkie hooked on her words, I moved back in. The slit skin burned under my eye, fanning into reds and blues, my own miniature sunset, a full-on shiner 2 days later. The rotten-colored tissue swelled into purple, highlighting the green in my eyes, but blunting my vision. It's not that bad, Mom murmured as she stared absent-mindedly at my face. Put yogurt on it. Take extra vitamin C. I didn't seek medical treatment because we didn't have the funds. Mom offered to pray on it, which pissed me off. With Bob in charge, our family was frequently evicted, ping-ponging around the beach cities of LA County due to his inability to hold down a job. It was the 1970s and Mom was a stay-at-home housewife, tending to my younger siblings, all 3 under 6 years of age. Teresa and Stephen had already escaped. At 16, I slept on the couches and floors of relatives and friends, even in a high school teacher's guest room, while trying to keep my grades up so I could find freedom via college scholarships. Our family had been without hot water for 2 months, heating it in a huge pot on the stove. The trick was not getting burned while carrying that cauldron cautiously to the bathtub. The contents filled the tub to a meager 2 inches, quickly cooling to an uncomfortable temperature, while we kids took turns bathing. This could have been a simple do-it-yourself repair job, but anytime Bob was involved, drama ensued. And if the rent wasn't 3 months overdue, he could have asked the landlord to replace the broken tank. With no aptitude for tools, Bob used brute force to try to make that water heater work, banging on its pipes relentlessly with that gritty hammer, but to no avail. When things broke at our house, they didn't get fixed. When we lived in the Black House at Torrance Beach, the garage door never closed all the way after one of Bob's tantrums. Neither did the bathroom door. The imprint of Bob's fist that blighted the wall at the Emerald Street house in Redondo Beach was still there the day we moved out. Gazing into the bedroom mirror a week later, I probed at the bruise, now a faded mossy green. The hushed but frantic tones of Mom and Bob buzzed like static in the living room. Eviction papers had been served and we had 14 days to get out. Then a fury surged from my core like a murky fiend, propelled me into the living room as I fought to contain this onslaught. But it filled the space, and I realized for the first time in my life, I was screaming at my parents, naming their betrayals. Mom's promises were pipe dreams. I would have to build a life on my own. Thank you.